people fall into sales, etc. Whereas other countries, sales is one of the important elements in any business. And it's rare that you'll actually hear things like great person, they had my best interests at heart, they really brought value to my business, those types of things, right? They're the things that we rarely hear. And it's really, I think, quite interesting that for something that's so important to our business, that we have such a low expectation of it. And in fact, many people or many industries these days don't have salespeople face-to-face anymore. And I'm going to go through a little bit of that. When we talked about the door-knocking salesperson, I remember the first sales guy I ever thought was really amazing. Does anyone remember the Kirby vacuum cleaners?
Yeah.
The Kirby vacuum cleaners? I was newly married. My wife and I were on the bones of our butt, and we had this guy knock on the door one Saturday, and he had this $2,000 vacuum cleaner, and I nearly bought it. Right? It was amazing. And they did the thing where they had a cigarette and they sucked the bit in the middle out of the cigarette, but left the paper to show you how gentle yet powerful it was, etc. Those days are gone.
It's 2,000. It's not.
$2,000. I didn't even have $200, right? But I knew I came this close.
He was good.
They were very, very good. And so the question now is, why do we need salespeople, and why do we need really a sales process? Customers don't just rock up. Right? They don't just rock up inside of our business. We actually have to bring them inside of our business. And there are a number of different ways that we can sell to people to actually make that happen. And the key here, I think, is understanding what's the right model and how we bring that to life. Just want to go through just a bit of history around what's happening in the world and what's really changing the landscape there. This is a bit of a study done by the World Economic Forum, and they looked at the future of roles. So it's a bit of a broad study around what's happening out in the job market generally across the world. And what we're seeing, and this is a global study, it's only from last year, and it's worth a read if you're interested. But this covers all trends, all industries across the globe. And what we see here is what's happening in the consumer space in terms of the declining markets. And salespeople, that's actually the bottom of the list. I cut the middle part of the list out just to fit it onto the slide, but that's actually the bottom, is salesperson in the consumer space. And that's both obviously over the door knockers, but also in retail and other areas of the consumer space. But what we see is that we see marketing, and this obviously covers things like social media managers and others, are at the top of the list, and that is truly the top of the list in the consumer space. And so we're seeing a real change in what's happening in terms of roles in this space. And it really goes to show that we're moving in many industries from people-led selling to message-led selling. And it's a real change.
So that an increase in the online space?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so, but this is only consumer. In a lot of other face-to-face industries, whether that be tech, and obviously a lot of newer industries, there's still either a stable trend or a upward trend in terms of hiring salespeople. And the job landscapes here, these are the top sort of 5 declining roles. And so this is predicted by 2022, 75 million jobs are going to go out of these spaces. Data entry, clerks, accounting, bookkeeping. Jobs that are repetitive by nature, that are data-driven, that don't have a lot of human interaction in terms of it. So they're all being either automated, removed completely from the process. And down there, door-to-door sales workers, that was even further down the list, that was like number 20 down the list in terms of declining roles. There's a stable job market that they're predicting over the next 2 to 3 years. Fortunately for you, the number one stable role in that space, and stable jobs are managing directors, business owners, etc. Right? So, which is good, right? That's a positive sign for you. In terms of what's happening in the emerging roles, what we're seeing is roles really split into 2 categories. And the reason behind these changes is really around this sort of 4th industrial revolution that we're talking about, the blending of data, technology, and people together as being the real industrial change that's coming. And what you're seeing here is the roles are really split into 2 categories, the ones that are going to need more of. they're either supporting that change, so they're supporting that change to drive down that market of automation and artificial intelligence, or they're the ones that keep the humanity right together. And these roles and these roles are part of that. So there's two camps in terms of growing trends: supporting the change or actually maintaining our humanity.
What is the A? Is it AI? What's it called?
Artificial intelligence.
intelligence.
Yeah, so these are all the.
Thing.
And artificial intelligence is probably one of the spaces that we're going to see the most growth out of,
Yeah.
because it's actually the one that has the ability to remove these at a faster rate than anything else. I was talking to a guy the other day who booked a holiday. He booked a cruise out of Sydney. He was based here in Adelaide. Booked a cruise out of Sydney, and then he had an interaction with a bot, right, which is artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
basically, online. They basically said, "Thanks for booking. Do you need any help with anything else?" I'm thinking about flights. I'm thinking about accommodation. He had this whole interaction around booking the accommodation, both on the return and on the way back. No person involved at all.
Wow.
He said the experience was extraordinary. Extraordinary. And no different than the human interaction, but in many ways. And he got exactly what he wanted, what he needed.
It all worked well.
Well, it's pretty scary, right? It's
Yeah,
scary.
I agree.
And that's before you go even further. I could sit and talk about AI all day, because I think it's one of those fascinating spaces
Yeah.
that terrifies me.
Yes, exactly. Hawkins and Co. have got a lot of interesting stuff to say about it.
It's a pretty interesting space. But we still need our humanness. That's the important piece. We still need our humanity, and in some roles and in some interactions, that's more important than ever. And that's something we need to think about. There are a bunch of other trends that sort of sit around that space as well. Clients are smarter than they've ever been before, both in terms of their intelligence, right, but also in terms of the information that they have available to them. They are very well researched before they come to us. And what that does is that if you think about the nature of the salesperson once upon a time was about educating the customer, educating them on what they need, helping them understand your value proposition over somebody else, helping them through that process in terms of needs analysis, etc., to get to the point where they buy. A lot of that stuff's done before you even see them, before you even get to them. And so the nature of how we sell changes. Quality is less important than shiny new. That's a really big trend over the last, probably really over the last 20 or 30 years, I think. But it's getting technology and change changes that and makes that much faster in terms of adoption. Which is why a lot of our jobs get outsourced somewhere else, because quality is less important than change. Brand loyalty isn't as strong as it used to be. And these things don't sit in isolation. Brand loyalty hasn't changed just because it has changed. It's changed because we've made it easier for brand loyalty to change, because quality is not important anymore. Those things went together. Once upon a time, you might buy a pair of R&M boots, you might still buy a pair of R&M boots that were $350, and you would keep those, and your brand loyalty associated with that is really important, and you'd get them fixed and repaired and all those sorts of things over time, so your brand loyalty stays. These boots aren't R&M, so I used to have a pair, but these maybe were $100. I don't even know what brand they are.
Does that change generationally? Like young people are more attached to brands, and is there still a percentage of the population that remains brand loyal, particularly to personal attire and things like that?
Yeah, there is, and that's where the brand really connects with the person in terms of their why and who they are. And so, if you're a farmer, perhaps, or somebody who's grown up on a farm or grown up in the country or whatever, R&Ms may be important to you. But it's less important than it has been in the past. Yeah, absolutely. So if you can connect with the consumer and link into their why and who they are and their identity, then your brand loyalty is stronger. And people want insight and transformation. They don't want you to tell them about your product anymore. They want to understand the insight that you're going to bring to them and the transformation that's going to bring, particularly in sort of solution and technology spaces. So these are.
Sorry to interrupt. Do they want to experience their own insight and transformation? Is that what you mean?
No, they want you as the salesperson, or they want your sales organisation to bring insight and transformation.
Or do they want you to do it for them?
They want you to bring that insight. So when I rock up with a product that I'm going to sell them, they don't want to hear about the product. They want to hear about the insight into my business and about how that's going to help me transform and change and what you're going to do differently, not just a widget.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at it as what's in it for me,
Correct.
but take it that little bit further.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, this is not going to apply to every industry. If you're selling shoes, then you're probably not going to be bringing insight and transformation to the customer necessarily, but if you're selling technology or something else, so it does depend on a little bit on the industry. I want to show you a bit of a short video. The last piece is turning up early in the sales cycle is really important. The earlier you can turn up, the more that you have the ability to influence their decision. And this obviously flies in the face of, they research well before they buy. And so turning up might be face to face before they work out they need something. Turning up might be part of their social media input, and you're turning up early there. It depends on your industry, but you've got to be there early before they make the decision, because by the time you put a face-to-face salesperson or an inside salesperson or a salesperson on the phone to them, they've probably already made the
So
decision.
if you turn up early and you're bringing some form of insight, then you circumvent their research quite
Exactly.
often. They won't bother because you've
Exactly
provided
right.
the solution to them. So, and I also believe, well, in my experience, very recently, because I'm on medical leave at the moment, and I was concerned about going back to have clients already lined up. And with one particular client, I was so early within the sales cycle for him that he's like, well, quality is actually more important than shiny and new, and I want you on my team, so I'm going to wait for you. So I think sometimes parts of those trends sort of leverage on each other.
Yeah, absolutely do. So did you help them set and understand the quality, why quality is important?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Because what you do.
had the salad in their dressing. Sorry, mate. And reject.
So what you're doing there is you're setting brand preference. You're uncovering, and we're going to get into this a little bit soon, you're uncovering their why before they've gone out to market.
Yeah.
And so you now have a whole bunch of value that you've brought to that customer
Yeah.
that anybody else would have.
Yeah. That nice
You shouldn't lose.
No, I won't. This one I won't lose.
That's the perfect place to be. Absolutely. So this short video is from 2007, so it's a bit old, but the reason I want to explain it because it talks a little bit about context and how important context. It was filmed in the Washington DC subway station. Music is important. Have you seen it?
It's cold.
Yeah, it would be cool. So, quality's not great. This is the guy here who's playing the violin. Okay? And this is just the general walkway through the subway station. Now, the guy who's playing is a guy by the name of Joshua Bell. He's he's a world recognised genius, I think people have talked to him about in terms of string instruments. And he's playing a Stradivarius violin that's worth $3.5 million back then in 2007. And it's his own personal violin. And as you can see, people generally walk past, but one lady recognises him. She saw him a few nights before at a concert in a concert hall that was completely packed out, where the tickets on average sold for about $100. That was 11 years ago. And here he is. I think he played for a couple of hours and made $38. Wow. Same guy, same skill set, same expertise, same $3.5 million violin. And the reason people walked past was context. because, and this is why it's really important when we think about sales, is that we have the right resource in the right place. Because you could put anybody in there playing the violin, you could put a kid in there playing the violin, probably make more money.
Brilliant, yeah.
Right? And your cost of the resource for the violin might be $500, right, as opposed to $3.5 million. And so I suppose the point I'm really trying to get across there is getting the right structure for your sales is really important based on the market that you're going for. And context becomes really important. Don't tell me about you just chowing. I'll just talk. And I thought I'd just put this up. That's all right. We can just do it here. In terms of where your business fits in this space, because where your business fits in this space will determine the types of salespeople that you will have, or the sales processes that you will have. So this is as perceived by the customer. Right? So forget about your business. This is as perceived by the customer. So the higher the value on this axis, the more complex your sale or your product or your solution is on this. And so in here, lower value, low complexity, I call that time and place. So that's consumer, store and digital. You've got to be in the right place, at the right time, you'll get the sale. So I walk past the shop, I need a pair of shoes, that's low value, low complexity for me, so therefore I'm likely to go and buy it from a store there. My wife was buying a pair of shoes, that's high complexity, I actually think a high value too, right? So she'll be looking for a different type of experience, right, than I will be necessarily looking for. So that's the bottom quadrant. The next one is what I call tactical selling. So they're high value things, but low complexity. So a house, a car might be a high value, low complexity. If you're into IT, big once-off IT hardware purchases, that's often the once-off type things. And these are where we have tactical salespeople. There's a deal to be done, and I've got to use some tactics to make that deal happen when the customer walks into my car yard, or when there's an open inspection. So a very tactical sale. We then have what I call solutions. So they're where the deals are complex. They might not be high value, but they're complex. So some examples around that, professional services.
Like health.
So what was that?
Health?
Health could be, yes.
We're providing health solution.
Yep.
Doing it.
Yep.
It's more complex because you're providing a solution rather than just
here's the thing.
Shoes.
Correct. So I might be bolting a couple of things together.
Tangible.
Yep. Or I might be helping you transform your business. It might be a consultative sell. So I'm selling you my services. That's not going to be necessarily high value. It's not going to be in the space of $500,000 for a house or $1 million for a house. But it's more complex because it's about the complexity for your business and for you as an organisation or as a customer. It's more complex. And then strategic solutions. So this is big stuff, right? Big complex sales, big dollar value, big ticket items. New technology is very consultative led in terms of the way it's being sold, and I call those strategic solutions. So they're strategic for the customer, they're big solution base, and they're high value, high risk. And the dollars associated with them are generally the money you make, not necessarily always the dollar value, but in terms of the money that you make, often.
Higher risk, higher value.
Correct. Often. And so we're not going to apply the same level of sales activity or person or sort of process, etc. here in this time and place as we are up in strategic solutions. We're going to do something different. And what's really interesting is that over time, these things all flow down. So your business 5 years ago, or your solution 5 or 10 years ago, will be different and in a different quadrant than it is today. So an example of that might be accounting software. 10 or 15 years ago, if you were setting up a business, it would be either here or here if you're going to get accounting software. Because accounting software come in to know a lot about your business and what it did and then they would bring a team of people in to come install servers and stuff, and then they would have people configure it for days or weeks on end to get it right for your business, and away you go. And then you would have a complex salesperson or capable sales selling you that solution. Today, I log online, Xero.com, and I do it myself. No salesperson involved at all. And that's only in the space of 10 years. So that's moves from here, or even here probably, straight into this time and place into a digital sales.
It's fair to say that also moves if someone's doing a repeat sale.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the
Exactly
trust.
right. Correct.
Don't give me all the jargon. I'm happy with what we did last time. Just do it again.
Yeah, that's right. And it might actually be that it moves from, maybe this end down here. It's still complex, and so you
Yep.
still need someone who knows what they're talking
Yeah.
about. They might not buy it digitally, but it does change. And therefore, the way you serve that should change
Yeah.
potentially as well.
Agree.
The way you serve that if it's your business,
If it's your business, how you serve that customer.
like lowering what you're doing. for
Potentially,
example.
yeah, that's right. Now, what's really interesting is customers want to drag you here. That's where they want you, because they want cheap, cheerful, quick, and often we actually have to take customers from certain places back up, and that's part of the being there early in terms of educating the customer. So customers, particularly in government and other things where they've written a spec, written a tender, written a whatever, it's very much they're trying to put it into this space here. But they're actually not understanding the complexity that sits behind the sales, the implementation, the ongoing support and other things, so it really should sit here. So the earlier we are in the sales cycle, the more we can work with the customer in the right way that the right space that they're in.
So you're talking about educating the customer around the complexity of what it is that you might be selling them, to
Correct.
kind of upsell them in some, or
Right sell.
right sell.
Yeah.
So you actually give them a product which means they need.
Oh, it's that insight and transformation thing too. You're
Correct.
actually giving them what they
Yeah.
want, even if they don't know they want it.
Yeah. So I was talking to a customer I'm working with this morning, and I'll use a government example because it's public and I don't like to share individual client information, but I worked with a government agency, it was actually Health, about 10 years ago, and they came out to market for a digital telehealth type solution, and they came out with hardware. This is the stuff we want. This stuff we want it installed in this location, etc. And it was a once-off transaction. So customer had it here. Tactical, we need this stuff delivered and installed across 100 sites here. We were able to work with that customer to actually get them to understand it's actually a lot more complex than that, and there's a lot more that needs to sit around management. And do you have the support mechanism that sits behind that? And it's now fairly and squarely sits in here. 9 years later, the company that I won that for still has that piece of business, and it's not been a one-off $2 million sale. It's been a $20 million solution because we were able to bring the customer from one to the other. That's just one example. So Simone asked me to share some mistakes that people commonly make. So I've got about 9 of them for you. I could probably sit here all day and talk them, but I've tried to categorise them into sort of key themes. We're not in sales is one I hear a lot. Oh no, my business no, we don't do sales. Our vision is to this, or we exist because of that, or we bring value to our customers in this area. Right? Those are important things, right? You need to have those statements and those. But underneath that, we're in sales. Okay. Right? If you own a business, you're in sales.
Take good life on.
And even if you're a not-for-profit, you're in sales. Because not-for-profit have to go out and compete for funding. They have to go and compete for money. They have to compete for your wallet share, right, in terms of donations, etc. So they're in sales as much as you are, as much as I am, as much as anybody. So we're all in sales. I started my sales career after a long tenure as being an accountant / CFO. And I worked in a company, and the CEO wanted me to move into sales because he wanted me to understand, because I was the 2IC and I was going to take over the company. He wanted me to understand the sales piece. And I was like, wow, sales, the sharks, that this, that, I don't want to have to check my integrity at the door, I don't, etc. And here I am, a long years later, a big long tenuous career in sales, and etc. But, and I don't advocate for this. He once stood up in front of a company-wide sales conference. Company-wide conference where everybody in the organisation from all of our offices around Australia were there. And he was trying to get the importance across to people inside the business, the accountants of the world, the person in HR, the person on the service desk, etc. The importance of customer. And he said, and this is verbatim, he said, if you're not in sales in this business or supporting somebody who is, what the hell are you doing here? Now, it's a pretty bold statement. Right? I don't advocate saying that. But it does highlight the point that actually the customer is really important. The first interface into that customer is often sales. And so let's place the right level of importance on that.
You know, when you had that list at the start about no salespeople, but isn't this all this re-languaging around a marketing manager? Is this the same?
It depends on the industry. Right? It depends on the industry. It depends on where you are, what you're distributing, where your clients are in that quadrant. So if your client is in the bottom left, you're going to be very marketing heavy. You're going to be very social media heavy. You're going to be very online heavy. That's where your people are in terms of your go-to. They're still salespeople. Mm-hmm. They're still selling to your customers. Yeah. They're just using a medium that works for that customer. If you're at the top end, you will have some marketing to support your message, definitely, but you'll be more sales heavy because it's more around the longer term sales cycle, big solutioning, relationships, etc.
And what did you say? You said it wasn't upselling, you called it something else?
Right selling.
Right selling.
I mean, upsell is a word.
Yeah, and that's a nice.
And in consumer and transactional type things, upselling is a good thing.
But it's the right sell for that person.
If you're in that top end of the market, it's not about upselling, it's about right selling. Because you want to get the right solution for that.
Well, that's what I mean. It changes the concept. Upselling is more like, oh look, I can sell you another thing, whereas right selling is this is actually what you need to be the best or whatever.
So if you think about the classic upsell, drive through Macca's, can I have a burger? Yeah, no problems. Would you like to make that into a meal? Right, all of a sudden, instead of it being $5, it's now $8. Right, it's an upsell. I don't need the burger. I don't need the Coke. I definitely don't need the chips. But that's a different sale, right? Than you will at that bigger end of town, right?
Thank you.
You may have the best vision and purpose and social media and all those other things, right? But if you're not, if you're not selling, then you're dead. And this, I think, is a really important piece that a lot of people forget. Right? Any customer-facing staff that you have need to understand what selling is. They need to understand customer, whether it's a customer service person, whether it's a person on the floor, whether it's a delivery driver who's in front of your customers. At each point of your interaction with your customer, you are selling to them, or you're selling your competitor to them. Your delivery driver rocks up and he's grumpy to the customer and he doesn't understand customer service, etc. And that's the experience that your customer has. That's the experience your customer will get. It's the same with customer service.
We nearly sacked a supplier this week for that because my head chef got upset because the delivery driver dropped off 2 boxes of stuff and said, who the F has parked their car like that and blah blah, and my head chef went, well, that would be the bird that owns the pub. And if you like, would you like me to get her to come down here so that you can point out to her how unhappy you are about her parking on their car like that?
Exactly.
Piss off the person that pays the invoice.
That's
imagine if she owned a social media.
Alright, mistake number 2. I need someone in the role now. I need someone to be selling right now. I need to hire someone right now. And as business owners and leaders, we're challenged, right? We're challenged with delivering results, delivering on time, and delivering for our customers. And I'll put a bold statement out here, but I think I'm qualified because I've held most of these roles. You can probably get away with not having the best accountant in the business. Right? It's not ideal, right? But you probably can.
Get away with not having the best accountant.
Yeah. But I don't think you can get away with not having the best sales plan, or the best sales plan, or the best sales process, right? Because that's the face of your customer. And if your customers don't trust, your sales people or your front to front, they just won't trust you as an organisation. Same thing. The best marketing, brand, search engine ranking, etc. Right? But if your sales people aren't the best, then we all know how hard it is to exit people from your business, right? When they're not the right fit, and it's really painful here. So take time, hire slow, hire fast. That's a really key piece. It's worth waiting an extra month or two to find the right salesperson, put the right sales process in place, etc. I need more salespeople. I hear this one a lot. I just need to buy. I did a study a couple of years ago. I'm going to run you through this. So this was a very large company. Working in that sort of complex top space, that top right-hand quadrant. And we did an analysis on where salespeople were spending their time. And 52% of their time, so this is the average 38, 40 hour week, right? Skewed somewhat, it could be skewed somewhat by others, but 52 to 48%, 52% of time they were spending not selling, doing other stuff. Now, some of that other stuff is, they got into stuff in the CRM and they've got to attend a team meeting or whatever. There's stuff that they still have to do. You're not going to get them selling 100% of the time. But service issues, order entry, whatever. There's a bunch of things that we get our salespeople to do that they should be doing. And there's a couple of key things. They're not very good at it because that's not the way their brains are wired. They hate doing it, so they're not going to be as effective at it anyway. And the best value they can add to your business is to get them talking to your damn customers. So let's get them out there, right? Not the other way around. And the most surprising piece around this, you go, well, that's really good. And the next things I'm going to show you is for their business. That's not for your business, right? But you can understand the principle. Their average on-target earnings for their high-end salespeople was about $250,000 a year. So what we're saying here is that $130,000 of their wage was doing non-selling stuff. But even worse was that 52% of their time meant that the opportunities they couldn't sell was worth over $4 million. So they had an average sort of $8 million sales target for their sales guys. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Now, it's not going to be the same metric for your business, but when you think about it in those terms, it's what is it costing me in terms of being able to achieve my sales potential? What is it costing me in dollars? And you think really, and it's no different if you apply this principle to your internal marketing team or whatever else is you do. The same principles apply. Get the right people doing the right things. So, sales effectiveness. Is your business built to be sales effective? Is the process from identification of customer through the end, is that slick, or does it go through a maze of complication to actually get to execute the sale? Get your team doing what they do best. Admin people are really good at admin. Sales people are really good at selling. Re-engineer your support organisation to support the selling process. And hire admin people to do admin. They're cheaper and they're better at it. They're really good at it, actually. So you think about that organisation. 52% at that time, you could hire 2 salespeople, you could hire 2 admin people for 4 salespeople, and they could have increased their sales by $16 million and probably saved $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in their wages just by doing that one thing. Goes back to that deal book calendar before, hey, profits are down, so we're going to sack our whole sales department. That's sort of principle. Selling via the wrong channel. Choose the right channel to sell to your customers. So where are they in that quadrant? What's the right channel to go to market to sell to those customers? Is that a digital channel? Is it a face-to-face channel? Understand what the right channel is. Is it distributors? Is it, when you get that wrong, and it will go really bad. Customer here in Adelaide that I work with, had some conversations with around, they built a software platform, which was awesome. I love it, I think it's fantastic, and they're really successful. But when they first started, they built this software platform, and because they didn't understand the selling process, they thought, what the right thing to do is we'll get distributors to sell it on our behalf. Now they were really invested in it, and it's one of those personal sales that you actually have to work with a HR department of an organisation for them to understand it to actually sell it. Well, the distributor doesn't care about that. He's about flogging lots of them and then selling it. because they chose the wrong channel to distribute their product. And there's a whole range, face-to-face, inside sales, digital, your partners, retail. Not on one size fits all. Choose the right channel, choose the right. Serve customers in the way it needs to be done, not the way you want it. The way it needs to be done. That's the important piece. State number 5, not focusing on the wife and the client.
I think it's wife.
Not
on the
focusing
wife.
on the wife.
The wife.
Why?
The why.
In my field, you always focus on the wife.
Yeah, that's right.
I built this great widget. I've got this great service. I've created this great thing. I do this great, amazing thing. Sorry, but no one cares. You go up to 10 different people, and maybe 1 or 2 might get it because they'll understand the why. You actually need to focus on the why. This goes back to the brand piece we were talking about before. You know, when you understand with that young person what's important to them in terms of their why, you sell a product to them, they'll remain brand loyal for a long time, right? As long as that continues to resonate with you. What's your intention when you rock up at a customer? Is your intention to sell them something, or is your intention to understand their why and match what you have with them? And if you go with a different intention, you'll end up with a different result and a much better result. Customers see through it like that. Remember, they're more educated than they ever were before. We often think, I think it's a great idea. Why do customers think they have a great idea?